You're listening to A Radio.
Landing ground.
Thank you for joining us. You are listening to A Radio, and this is the Morning Moment. We're on weekdays, 11:45 Eastern. Follow us on Spreaker.com and click on the like button. This piece is usually something I wouldn't cover in detail. It's a For Britain party manifesto coming up to the next general election in the UK. But this is a little different. Something in a so-called free country like Canada would, I'm sorry to say, not even be tolerated. So the UK, despite its non-stop attacks on freedom and free speech, does in fact have that going for it. It's from Anne-Marie Waters, and she talks about, in detail, the approach that has affected the UK, because that's what many of us think the religion of Islam is. Because what they don't tell you about the religion of Islam is it's not just a religion alone, it's political as well. The aim of Islam is to change every country into an Islamic country by whatever means are needed to achieve that aim, be it political, cultural, or immigration. It's just that simple. Unfortunately, far too fewer people either choose to accept this argument, and even fewer even entertain it. Here's just part of her speech on YouTube. I urge you all to listen to it completely in its entirety. If nothing else, it may spark some comments, and that's always good in a free society.
Over the coming weeks, I'm going to be taking you through, in some detail, the For Britain Manifesto for 2020. Now, given that we have just been subjected to yet another Islamic terror attack, where 2 people were murdered a few days ago in London, I want to start by talking about a policy that makes this party unique, that shows who we are, our courage, our strength, and our determination to defend British culture. And that issue is, of course, Islam. Now, others will talk about lack of police, they'll talk about sentencing and letting people out early. And these are all pertinent points, but they do not address the ideology behind these attacks. Both Labour and the Conservatives have turned Britain into a country where 23,000 known jihadis are walking our streets. More importantly, the borders are open and will stay open to the same countries that brought 23,000 jihadis to Britain. It's insanity, and no one is discussing this in terms of immigration either. So immigration will be up next. But today I think it's pertinent for us to talk about Islam. Let me take you through, I'll read through the policy in our manifesto with a bit of extra commentary from myself. So, to start. Since the 1950s, migration from the Islamic world to the UK has grown, and it currently shows no signs of abating. Now, why do we have 23,000 jihadis in the country? Because the borders have been open to countries where jihad is fervent. And here's what's crucial. Even if we locked up every suspected terrorist for life, the borders are still open for more. Exactly how many are we supposed to imprison? Closing the borders is absolutely key to saving our society. It continues, while immigration per se, if too high, can produce immense challenges in any society, immigration from societies with opposing cultural and religious values can be irreparably damaging. And we are now seeing the result of that damage. The British government British government after British government kept our borders open without in any way or at any time questioning the beliefs, the values, the morals, the religious tradition of the people coming here. Now, multiculturalism is one issue, and perhaps it can work, but it depends on the cultures. If cultures can live successfully side by side, it will, as I say, depend on what the culture teaches, what its traditions are, because there are different cultures in the world. Different parts of the world have different cultures, and different parts of the world have different religions. This is common sense. So you must ask yourself whether or not a specific culture or a specific religion will be able to fit in seamlessly to British society. This question was never asked. For Britain understands that mass immigration from Muslim societies has introduced Islamic norms and values to Britain. And we understand that those values are, for the most part, incompatible with our own. Islamic cultural and religious values are very different to those of the Western world, or indeed many of the world's cultures. While Western democracy is built upon the concept of free speech and the right to criticise authority, including religious authority, Islam does not recognise this right. In fact, in several Islamic countries, criticism of Islam is punished with the death penalty, often using incredibly gruesome methods. Now, this is a matter of fact. It's not speculation, it's observable truth. The death penalty for apostasy or blasphemy, Pakistan, for example, Saudi Arabia, and these are relevant, particularly with the case of Pakistan, because most Muslims in this country originate from Pakistan. There is no freedom of speech there. There are no women's rights either, but I'll get on to that in a second. You cannot have seamless integration with millions of people who know a society that punishes people for free speech with the death penalty. You cannot have that. And we have seen the end result. We have seen the restrictions on free speech that are now emerging in the United Kingdom as a result of Muslim organisations demanding that their criticism of their religion be criminalised. And it will be. Unless we turn the tide, it will be outright criminalised. It's now part of this hate speech nonsense, but it will eventually be directly criminalised, especially, faster under Labour. It'll happen under the Tories as well, but it'll happen faster under Labour. A second major incompatibility between Western society and Islamic society involves the status and treatment of women and girls. While in most of the world's societies, men and women enjoy equal rights, in Islamic societies, women and girls are treated as property. Child marriage, honour violence, domestic violence, rape and degradation of females are rife across the Islamic world, and Sharia law permits many of these abuses. Criticism of this can amount to criticism of Islam and therefore blasphemy, thereby carrying the death penalty. Now, once again, this isn't controversial. The 19 of the 20 worst countries in the world for women are Islamic. We know that child marriage is rife. We know from senior clerics across the Muslim world that child marriage is permissible under Sharia law. We also know, and we know it not only from looking at Muslim countries, but from looking at Islam right here in the UK, that women are treated as less than subhuman. A woman is worth half of a man. Her word, her testimony is worth only half of a man's. She has no rights over her own children. This is disgraceful, and it's happening in the UK under our noses with Sharia councils and tribunals. And our politicians, weak politicians, cowardly politicians, look the other way, all the while pretending to be feminists, of course. Let's not forget that bit. Moving on. While For Britain recognises that individual Muslims are human beings who should be judged on their own merits, like everyone else, we also recognise that mass immigration from the Muslim world brings Islam and Sharia along with it. Now, when you argue against Islam in any shape or form, the apologist will come back with, and I guarantee it every single time, the response of the apologist will be, not all Muslims. We know, I've been down this road so many times. We know that not every individual Muslim subscribes to this stuff, but we also know that vast numbers do. And that when you open your borders to the countries that practice Sharia, for example, you are bringing people who believe in Sharia to your country. You are bringing Sharia. Just because not all Muslims subscribe to it doesn't mean it isn't a problem. It is, it's real, it's here, we've got to confront it. Not all, not good enough. Both free speech and the safety and freedom of women and girls have dramatically reduced, both in Britain and across the West, as a result of the import of Islamic norms. Currently, Britain and the West are home to countless polygamous families, child marriages, and other practices entirely incompatible with our laws. This is because Muslims often live according to the rules of Sharia and reject Western values. Thus, a parallel system has emerged, with Muslims living under one law and everyone else under another. Once again, this shouldn't be controversial. We know that across Europe, child marriage is rife. We know this. And it's definitely a much bigger problem than our politicians are willing to admit. The parallel system has emerged. It has, particularly in matters of family law and in some matters of criminal law. We know because they tell us that the Muslim Council of Britain, the Muslim Arbitration Tribunal, the Islamic Sharia Council all support Sharia councils in this country, and they are practicing it in a way that defies our cultural norms and values, and indeed our laws. No Sharia council or tribunal should be dealing with domestic violence cases, for example, a criminal offence, but they are. They openly admit it.
I, for one, find this refreshing. Don't you? There's so much more I haven't played because it's too long, and I want you to listen to it for yourselves. But for my money, this is why in every country other than the United States, why we must have a First Amendment right. To my mind, nothing else matters as much that if we all had that option, that these political dictators would not have the ability to fool their citizens and, in the case of Canada, openly remove from the citizens of Canada their right to speak about any issue openly without fear from one group or another, or the authorities to that matter. Otherwise, you end up with what they have in the UK, that being word police, scouring the internet looking for so-called hate speech and arresting and prosecuting their citizens for openly expressing their views. This really is the future George Orwell foretold, except it's not a future anymore. It's current in many Western countries. You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab, Spotify, and email. We're on Spotify under the podcast section. Type in Canadian Politics with a twist and you'll find us. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass these links on to your friends. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all our morning moments at Spreaker.com/A-Radio, EHRADIO, A-Radio. And please click on the like button. Join us Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 11:45 Eastern, and tell your friends and pass the word. We only tell the truth, not what the mainstream media want you to know.